Hello and welcome to the Green Machine podcast. I'm Nick, filling in as your host tonight with Martin. Martin, will we answer the big question about where Dave is tonight, or will we leave the listeners scratching their heads and wondering where he is?
I think
So,
we need to kind of disclose this. I get a lot of stick for being the English lad of the
yeah,
podcast, and the fact is, it's been a massive weekend in the UK this weekend, and lots of a big concert going on in Windsor this evening to celebrate the coronation of Charles III. And Dave isn't working at it. I can just want to assure everyone he's not working. He does do a bit of security at
no,
times. He's not working there, but we have had confirmation that, well, allegations, I suppose, unfounded at the moment, but he's not on the podcast. We were expecting him on, and we believe that he may be at the coronation concert. So,
well, I heard rumors that he's down under, and not that
right,
kind
okay.
of, and not that kind of down under.
Right, okay.
Read into that what
Right,
you want, children.
Yeah.
And it's great because
okay.
we can take the explicit mark off the podcast tonight because there's a bit of class tonight, a bit of panache,
Yeah.
So look,
we know we hold this kind of show together. So,
well, we do. I mean, we keep it classy, we keep it PG, and PC, of course. So again, read into that what you want regarding David's whereabouts tonight. So look, as always, really want to hear your comments, where your Irish football news and your nostalgia. Of course, we have been covering, well, not necessarily me, but Martin and David have been doing a great job on the This Week Back in the Days every Wednesday. So do check that out. Do check that out in the archives. And of course, all of our different episodes that are available on the Green Machine podcast. And of course, if you're listening back to this live episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button on your wherever I suppose you get your podcast, whether it be Spotify or Apple. If you're on YouTube, hit a subscribe there. And if you really want to help us, go to our shop, www.greenmachinepodcast.com, where you can buy a number of beautiful items, Martin. Isn't that right? So, of course, our Green Machine jersey made by Nike and a few other bits and pieces, some fantastic badges. There they are. By in partnership, Martin, wasn't it? And not one of David's partners, but in partnership.
Yeah, nice collaboration we did there. But look, the shirts are selling really well, and we've only got a few left. So yeah, just bear with us, order away, and we'll hopefully confirm that you can get the size that you've ordered. But yeah, really well.
With someone on Twitter today saying they reckon they're the same build as me. They don't realize I'm a fat bastard.
They don't realize you're Kenny Cunningham's gym buddy. That's what they don't realize.
Yeah. Have I mentioned that before, Martin?
I think you have.
Yeah, I am Kenny Cunningham's gym buddy, apparently. Right, so let's launch into the show. There's no our boys in green today, Martin, because look, it's the last day of League One. Championship wraps up tomorrow. It's it was a very, very quiet weekend, but I think there is a couple of things worth mentioning. And the biggest one is this man, Glenn Whelan. He announced his retirement after Bristol City's game against Bolton Wanderers. Came on the 78th minute as a substitute and came back off a little bit like when Martin O'Neill retired him back in 2017 or 2018. Came back off in the last minute to a standing ovation. A very, very decorated career from Glenn Whelan. I suppose we'll have a quick word on him. Great servant, wasn't he? Coming up to 40 years of age, 39 I think he is now, and finally calling it a day after well over 2 decades in the game.
Yeah, amazing career. Like, you got to remember he started off at Man City, didn't he? And he was it didn't really work out from there, but like fantastic player and servant for the Republic of Ireland as well. I know, like Martin O'Neill, as you said, he did try to retire him, but I think we look back with green tinted glasses. Some of us have seen some of the social media tributes and posters today.
Yeah.
I always thought he did very well for Ireland and he'd done a particular job. And I think even on our podcast, we spoke about, maybe the fact that he should have been brought in by the coaching staff, management, to kind of do the job of kind of helping some of the defensive midfielders we have, because he done a fantastic job in that particular role for us over the years. And look, brilliant servant. But I think, as I said, some of the tributes are a little bit forgetful of some of the abuse, sadly, that he used to get. People couldn't really understand what his role was within the team for Ireland.
Yeah.
And I think he done well overall, and fair play, 40 years coming up to and a great career. And yeah, he's been a good lad, and I think he's a good pro, and that's what he's shown. And fair play to him, he's done really well. So congratulations, hope he has a fantastic retirement.
No, absolutely. And as you said, Martin, a little bit of a myth around these, I wouldn't say these false tributes, but a lot of the tributes that weren't really there when he was a player. Like, to be fair, he came in under Trapattoni, didn't he? He was kind of his his favorite player, wasn't he? He called him Glenn Gattuso Whelan, and he wants him to play in that Glenn Gattuso role. Now, he was not Glenn Gattuso by any stretch, but he did serve a purpose. Now, what I would say about Glenn Whelan was he was a little bit of a victim of Giovanni Trapattoni's system, I felt, because Trapattoni always played with two defensive midfielders, didn't he? And it was Stephen Reid at the start. I thought he was excellent beside Stephen Reid. I thought he was allowed to sit a little bit deeper, and the onus was on Reid to kind of carry the ball. And then when Keith Andrews came in, he was a little bit more limited than Stephen Reid, wasn't he? And Whelan had a bit of a burden to hold the possession and to kind of play making away. Do you think that's fair to say? And he really wasn't capable of doing that. So, like, a lot of my memories of Glenn Whelan are misplaced passes, maybe a little bit of a lack of pace, that kind of aspect to him. However, if you ever watch him for Stoke, and if you watch highlights of him for Stoke, or if you watch highlights of him for Ireland in his later years, particularly under Mick McCarthy, when he replaced Declan Rice as a holding midfielder, he was an excellent defensive midfielder, wasn't he? He was kind of like that quarterback-esque defensive midfielder, and I think he was a little bit misused under Trapattoni. Not as much under Martin O'Neill, but having said that, I think he suffered a little bit from the players he played beside. But as I said, for Stoke, excellent player, well over a decade in the Premier League, did really, really well with Aston Villa. A big part of getting them back into the Premier League. And the fact that he's still going at 40, well, 39 really, is really, really testament to him. But yeah, you're right, Martin. I mean, a huge amount of abuse. And wasn't there something up on Twitter? I think it was his wife saying he doesn't really do much media stuff because of the abuse he got, not only from Irish fans, but also from the media.
Yeah, I think just wasn't rated high enough. And I think I've heard a podcast where they talk about how, I think it was Tony Pulis talking about him at Stoke and saying that, every year Tony Pulis said they kind of were looking to replace him, and he would just knuckle down and say, okay, I'm not your first choice now. And eventually he'd be the first name on the team sheet, basically, because they couldn't really, he just proved himself. Every year he proved himself in the fitness, in understanding the game and what his role was for the team. They bring in other players, but he just knew he was a proper pro, and he knew this is how football works, and he'll knuckle down and he'll do the job. And that's what he did. And, even look, he did the same with Ireland as well. Martin O'Neill retired him, and he
as he used to do with a lot of players, didn't he? Yeah. But excellent player. I remember getting him as a football sticker back in 2001. I think he was at Man City. So, Jesus, it shows how long he's been knocking around. And worth mentioning as well that he played in 2 European Championships, but also played in an underage World Cup. I think a lot of people forget that.
Oh, yeah.
And played particularly well. I know we're going to be covering that in the near future, but was kind of a linchpin in that team, and very, very highly rated at Man City. So look, the best of luck to Glenn, wherever his career takes him. I know he's doing his coaching badges. I think he's doing his pro license, isn't he? So who knows? Could be back in Ireland. I think his young lad's meant to be a very, very good player. So
he has worked as well with the underage teams already, hasn't he? He's been brought in. So yeah, fair play to him and stuff. So yeah, I think he's been a good servant, as I said, and yeah, really best of luck to him.
Absolutely, the very, very best of luck to Glenn. So look, we know already League One did finish off. Of course, Glenn finishing off in League Two. So just to kind of give an idea of where the Irish players lie at the moment. So as we know, Burnley and Sheffield United promoted to the Premier League already. So Josh Cullen and Michael Obafemi both gaining promotion with Vincent Kompany. And Sheffield United, a couple of players gone up there as well. John Egan, Enda Stevens, and the finest left-footed centre-half of the decade, I would say, Kieran Clark, who was on loan from Newcastle, who will probably end up in League Two. But look, it all counts. But again, just to kind of map out the playoffs at the moment, of course, there is another day of championship action. There's a lot of teams in the mix for the playoffs. So at the moment, Luton Town, Middlesbrough, Coventry City and Millwall do occupy those playoff places. But Sunderland, West Brom and Blackburn Rovers are all still in the mix as we head into tomorrow's fixture. So Darragh Lenihan certainly in the mix there with Middlesbrough. And then a couple of surprise names, I suppose. Luke McNally on loan from Burnley at Coventry. He could go up, as could Sean Maguire, who hasn't really featured much for them, but is still a part of the team nonetheless. And then Danny McNamara of Millwall, of course. I suppose the players that we're keeping an eye on are probably those at West Brom. Darragh O'Shea, he's been out for a little while. Hopefully will be back next season. Could be in the Premier League. But I suppose a player that is worth mentioning is Jay Malumbi. So There we go. Lost in there for a second. So Jay Malumbi recently named as West Bromwich Albion's Supporters Player of the Season. Excellent season for the guy. I mean, finally a bit of consistent football, Martin, wasn't it? And I mean, all those energetic performances for Ireland, really stifling the French. That has been a constant for West Brom. And if you just have a look at Twitter, if you have a look at any fan pages or fan accounts, they are all about Jay Malumbi. How good is this guy, and how good has his progression been this season?
Yeah, I think he's a testament to what we've been saying on the Green Machine Pod for some time now, that, you know, if you play well for Ireland, you kind of get in the shop window, your club's reminded of what your attributes are. And I think he has demonstrated that fantastically well with West Brom. And, you know, we're seeing the fruits of that now, you know, fruits of his labour, basically. He's had a really good season. He's going away to Ireland, playing in high profile matches and having really, really good performances. I know we've kind of probably highlighted some of the kind of inefficiencies in his game and stuff. Sometimes he's a bit loose. He's a bit, you know, I think the Scotland game comes to memory where he was a bit lucky not to be sent off and things like that, you know, some of his challenges and stuff. But he's doing a great job for us now, and his energy and that's what you need in the engine room. I know it's a cliche, but that's what he brings, and I think fair play to him. And I like the fact that, you know, he's there at the promotion charge here, and, you know, hopefully they might make the playoffs. And it is down to his form, basically. So, yeah, best of luck to him now in the last game coming into it.
Yeah, well, a couple of weeks ago, he was ruled out for the season, and then he kind of pushes them towards the playoffs. And, I mean, you could have a starting midfield partnership there. Josh Cullen, Jay Malumbi up in the Premier League. Wouldn't be bad at all. And, of course, Sunderland in the mix as well. Dennis Kirkin, of course, Irish qualified. He is playing for them. And Blackburn Rovers have Sammy Smoddox, who's had an excellent season with them. Pretty sure he got the Fans Player of the Year. So just another one worth mentioning. Sadly, though, at the other side of the championship table, there have been a couple of relegations already involving Irish players, and there's one of them, James McLean, sadly relegated with Wigan. He's out of contract in the summer. Of course, Will Keane and Anthony Scully as well, relegated with Wigan. Not only that, Blackpool, of course, as well. Andy Lyons, really, really good second half to the season from the former Shamrock Rovers man. A good few goals under Mick McCarthy before he sadly departed Blackpool, and CJ Hamilton as well, who won a couple of Ireland Cups before the end of last season, also relegated, as was Jeff Hendrick with Reading and Shane Long. Thoughts on that, Martin? A few very, very senior players going down into League One.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking, we've been chatting about this the last few weeks on our OBIG and stuff, and saying how, you know, teams that were down there, sadly, some of our players are involved, and it was always going to be the case that some of them were going to get relegated. So interesting to see them out of contract, perhaps some of them, and will they get moves and go back up again, or kind of fight the long fight with their teams to come back up? You know, I've noticed you didn't say Cardiff stayed up. You know, I thought that I'm very happy about that.
Well,
obviously.
Naturally, I wasn't going to give you that little bit of airtime, so let's forget about that.
But no, look, we knew teams are going to be we're going to be relegated, and that's just the case of it. And it'd be interesting what James McLean happens with him, whether he gets.
Will he go to Derry? Do you think?
Ooh, I don't
34.
know. Yeah, I mean, I think he's incredibly fit, isn't he? He's probably got another year in him, and I think he's very loyal and respected at that team. So he's the kind of experience you want coming in that changing room to kind of get them back up straight away. And I think he might give a year here and then go back to the domestic game.
Yeah, well, no. Well, look, he's had an excellent season. I could see him going to somewhere like Ipswich. But then again, like, he is really, really loved at Wigan. I mean, they've really taken him under his wing. It's a family club for him. I suppose they've been very, very supportive to me, even in his first spell there. So maybe he'll stay, maybe he'll go after a little while. And just to touch on League One, Martin, so in terms of promotion, so Plymouth Argyle, Combine Harvester. It's not a bit racist, is it? Was it Ian Holloway? Ian Holloway was
he was Plymouth, wasn't he, for a while?
He was kind of a cult hero with them, wasn't he? So Finn Azaz on loan from Aston Villa. Looks likely he's going to drop down into a lower division, possibly with Plymouth in the Championship, which would be fantastic. And Tyreek Wright, another ex Aston Villa player, playing for Plymouth as well. So they went up as champions today. Ipswich just losing out. Of course, they have Marcus Harness, who hasn't really featured in the Ireland squads in the last little while. And Kieran McKenna, can we claim him? No, probably not.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, Kieran McKenna as a coach, that he was slagged off and blamed as being clueless under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, wasn't he? And look at, he's done well
Guilty. Guilty.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if you look, I mean, I know it's on a Man United podcast, but look, David isn't here, so we'll do it anyway. Yeah, Michael Carrick, and Kieran McKenna doing very, very well since leaving. Jose Mourinho's appointments, though, I think that's worth. Or sorry, Jose. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm Portuguese. I should
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So just to bear that in mind. But yeah, we'll claim Kieran if he's doing well. We'll claim him if he's doing well. He doesn't spell Kieran properly, but anyway, that aside, he's done very, very well.
He's not our favourite Kieran either, is he? Dave. Dave's favourite.
Well, he's not Dave's favourite Kieran, but yeah, we better leave that one as well. Jesus, see what happens when Dave goes. You lower the standards, Martin. You lower the tone. Trying to get us in trouble. Naughty. Right, so Sheffield Wednesday, Barnsley, Bolton Wanderers, and Peterborough United also occupying those playoff places. Derby County, did you see the penalty and the red card? Curtis Davies, once Irish eligible, may I mention?
Oh, I didn't see that at all. No, all I heard from the Derby game was obviously. I mean, look, they've missed out on the playoff, haven't they? And that's with them incredible goal scoring record as well. So
they've invested very, very heavily there, and not by buying players, but with wage bills and that kind of thing. Conor Hourihane joined Derby thinking that they would eventually get into the Premier League, and he's going to spend another season in League One. Got into the team of the year, didn't he? Team of the season for League One. Ridiculous stats as per usual. Dave McGoldrick, even more ridiculous stats, the amount of goals he scored. And James Collins, which a lot of people do forget about. Aaron Cashin captaining the side a lot. They're going to be in League One again, and Jason Knight too. I mean, and I think he's going to be staying in League One, Martin.
Well, I did see on Twitter tonight when the fact they're saying that they missed out on the playoff promotion, and that he was kind of visibly quite emotional and kind of touching the badge and stuff, and basically it was perceived as kind of saying goodbye. And I wonder, did he give them a year? Because really, he has to get out of there to
100%.
Our Irish football team now is, and this is not getting carried away, but we are progressing. And he's not at one stage for me especially after the Luxembourg game, which seems a long time away to go now. I was thinking, God, it's all around him now. He's going to be such a great player for us. But you look now, he's got to really get a correct move, and he's got to be in the thinking of Stephen Kenny. And I know he has been playing okay, but he started off at right back this season, didn't he?
Well, that's the thing. Like Liam Rosenior, who's the Hull manager now, I think he started off the season as Derby manager. He was a right back. And he had a couple of right backs. I think Nathan Byrne, I know this has gone off into tangent, but Nathan Byrne, who was the first choice right back, he went off to playing the MLS, and they were a little bit stuck, weren't they? So yeah, Knight played there. I don't think it did him any good. He hasn't really nailed down a position. I know he's played out wide for us. I know against France, he played kind of in a number 10 role, with Chidozie Ogbene. Look, I think there is a little bit of hype around Jason Knight. He's a very tidy player. I don't think we're used to having midfielders that are as tidy as him. I didn't know where he was going to go last season. People thought he'd go to the Premier League. He wasn't going to go to the Premier League. You have to. The way you have to look at it is, and we said that we would have said this time last year was, for every Jason Knight, you have so many lads that are a lot better, and we see a huge amount of him. He's very tidy. He's very creative. He's unbelievable in tight spaces, a bit like Dave, and we haven't. We probably have the green tinted glasses on, and he is excellent. And we haven't seen that type of midfielder play for Ireland probably since Wes Whelan, a good few years ago. I'm not saying he's as good as him, but that kind of, technical midfielder. He would have been lucky to get a championship move, I think. And yes, he might be on the radar now. I think there might be teams going in from, you can imagine him going to like a Swansea or a Blackburn or someone like that. I don't think he's going to get a Premier League move, but I think the biggest frustration from that, as I said, is probably from Hourihane, because there are quotes from him saying he only joined the club on the premise that they were going to go to the very top. And also Dave McGoldrick. I mean, what a season he had for Derby.
Yeah, amazing season for McGoldrick, of course, for them amount of goals. And you've got to be disappointed if you don't go up. And it's fair play as well, Horan. We said he was going to be going down to that level. And, the stats don't lie. But that's at that level, let's remember. And I think we've got to remember, he's going at the end of his career now, Horan. He's not the future. Yeah. Jason Knight, as I said 2 years ago, we're hyping him up and thinking he's going to be a very influential player. But now he needs to kind of either stay in League One and tear it up, or get a championship move. But he's got to be influential now. He's got to be the first name on the team sheet, because otherwise he's just going to become a kind of squad part player for us. And I think he's better than that. But he really needs to get the move right now.
Yeah, and sadly, not a lot of players in that playoff are Irish. I mean, you've Luke O'Connell with Barnsley, excellent season. A lot of people saying that he should actually be in the seniors at the moment. I think he's still a little bit raw for that, but an excellent talent. And I don't think he's going to be a League One player for much longer, regardless. And I suppose the only other Irish link will be Darren McAnthony. Of course, he's the club chairman at Peterborough United, who've just pipped Derby on 76 points. Now, sadly, in League One as well, a couple of relegations involving Irish players, most notably at MK Dons, who very nearly went up last season into the Championship with Troy Parrott. Dawson Devoy, big fan of him, naturally being an exposed player. I've kept a keen eye on him. He's been in and out of the team. And Conor Grant as well, good Malahide man. So two lads I've had a lot of interest in. Sadly going down. Warren O'Hara as well, who's a very, very highly rated centre-half, another exposed player. Sadly relegated with MK Dons. So look, we do wish them a speedy return to a League One from League Two. So I suppose, Martin, that kind of it's kind of concluding the season. We do have the end of the Championship tomorrow, but there is a few small matters left in the Premier League, especially a relegation battle, and there will be an Irishman involved. Robbie Keane, there he is there, looking absolutely soaked to the skin. He was announced last week as an assistant coach to Sam Allardyce. I suppose back where he shone as a young lad. What are your thoughts on that? Didn't see this one coming.
No, it's a strange one, wasn't it? And I know that, Harry Redknapp last week spoke on another podcast and spoke about in an interview and said how, Robbie needs to be back in and how he does soccer aid coach and he's really, really influential and stuff, but in the change room. But, we've not seen much of it from him. We've been knocking around, hasn't he, with Figo and John Delaney along the streets of London and then most recently. So he's been doing a lot of work with UEFA. I not to slag him off too much, to be honest, but the credentials aren't there for us to see yet. Is it justified, all this, that he goes and gets these jobs? Big Sam's always going to bring in people when it's going to be a short-term thing, isn't it? So, is he bringing in someone? Well, basically, it's stacks of, he's bringing in a Leeds probably kind of legend. Probably that'd be a bit too strong to call him a legend at Leeds. I don't know.
Well, look, I think when he
they
left
love him there, don't they?
Yeah, they do love him, and I think when he left there, he was kind of at the height of his powers, wasn't he? Just after the World Cup.
Yeah. So look, he's gone in there as assistant or whatever he's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be enough to get them up and out of the relegation zone. And you've got to remember Andy Reid, of course, as well, with Nottingham Forest, a former teammate of Robbie Keane's. He's assistant, isn't he, or coaching at Nottingham Forest. So, yeah, it's not looking great in the Premier League with the relegation and the Irish involvement. Obviously, Seamus Coleman, the injury, and Gavin Bazunu as well. So, not looking great.
And we spoke about Jason Malumbi being ruled out for the season and then playing a couple of weeks later. Seamus Coleman's made kind of a miraculous recovery as well, hasn't he? So a friend of mine, Martin, he's a physio. And when that went in, he's, I suppose, one of my lads' WhatsApp groups or whatever, he's in that. And all the lads are saying, oh, Jesus, see Coleman's injury and all this kind of thing. And I didn't actually see this till a few days later, but he texted in almost immediately and he said, no, just bad hyperextension. He won't be out for that long. He was like, it's not going to end his career. And thankfully, that seemed to be the case. But we were thinking the worst, Martin, and probably rightly so.
Yeah, we're not used to see. And that's really valid that your friend's seen that and he knows what that and diagnosed it in a way from visually, because you'd know from an injury straight away. Remember we had David Roach, who's a strength and conditioning physiotherapist on the podcast before, and we were talking about injuries and things like that and how he watches the game. It's worth listening back on the greenmachinepodcast.com to listen to the past episode with him. But we've had some interesting stuff with physios and strength and conditioning coaches, and for the layman's kind of idea of seeing a bad impact injury, we're not used to seeing that, and it looks horrendous.
Yeah,
and yet it's probably quite a common thing. So it wasn't bone shattered or anything like that, thankfully. But I think we were just worried about it because it's Seamus Coleman. People were saying, oh, is it the same knee as the last one and the leg and things like that? So, it looked terrible. I think that looking back now and without the emotion of it, when you see him, stretch it off and he's fist pumping and getting the team, he's doing a bit of fisting there, wasn't he? For the crowd.
Yeah.
He's obviously not in massive pain, I would say, and he knows himself that it's not going to keep him out too long. I would expect players will probably know some of the extent of injuries and the danger with that. So, it's interesting. Your friends diagnosed that straight away, and it just looks horrific to us. And obviously, we all jump on it and go, "Oh my god!" He's going to be out for ages now, in his age. But you got to remember, he's a top pro, and it's very hard to keep a man like Seamus Coleman down. And thankfully, he revealed a few days later that it was fine. Well, relatively fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's still fairly nasty. It'd probably floor one of us, Martin.
Oh God, yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, probably wouldn't walk again. but look, right. So I've after losing the image of this, well, there was a lovely reunion on Friday night, wasn't there, Martin? And it wasn't one involving Dave and one of his Tinder dates. So the first women to pull on the Ireland jersey to represent the women's national team in an official game were reunited on Friday in a special event. So this is from the FAI. It's part of the Football Association of Ireland's 50-year anniversary celebration of women and girls football. The trailblazing women who first featured for Ireland in 1973 were honoured at the Westin Hotel, Dublin. Representing 8 different counties, the women who helped Ireland defeat Wales 3-2 on the 13th of May 1973 and who beat Northern Ireland 4-1 on June 30th, 1973 in Bluebell, Dublin, were reunited for the first time in 5 decades. Some lovely images there, Martin, wasn't it, from last Friday, and a really, really monumentous occasion in what's a fantastic year for women's football in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to the World Cup. Kate McCabe captain Arsenal in the semi-final of the Champions League last week. So the profile of the women's game's going up all the time, and I think fair play, the FAI are acknowledging, the history of it, 50 years, a lot of legends there. A lot of the names won't be known to many of us, but, I would urge everyone to kind of read into it, read the stories. The papers and media are covering it quite well. And yeah, it's fantastic to see, I suppose. And, it's on the back of even the FAI now. We're launching their own women's season ticket now.
Yeah.
So for Tala. I was meant to ask you, what is the capacity of Tala? I can't remember what it was. Someone asked me the other day.
I think it's around 8,000 or around that. So, something like that.
Yeah, so about 8,000.
I wouldn't know much about that club, to be honest.
No. That was a little question there for you. Top stadium, though, isn't it? But
a bit windy.
That's where the proper football in Dublin's played. But they, they've never sold it out officially. And I in the back of the World Cup, obviously qualifying for that's an amazing achievement. Got the 2 qualifiers coming up, and then they've got 3 other games in the Nations League announced as well. So season ticket seems quite good value. I'm hoping it's going to be well supported. I know they're on sale now at the moment, so do check out the FAI.ie for the tickets for that. But it's just getting bigger, the women's game. The profile's there, and even Arsenal played on Friday night, and you couldn't get a ticket for Arsenal ladies in London to go to that game. I know they're fighting for qualification for the Champions League again, but the profile's just going up. Really well supported. We've had members from West London inquiring of me, can I get a season ticket for the women's game? That would never have happened. It's never happened before. So again, I think the FAI are reading the room and knowing that there is demand for it, and they seem to be well valued. And yeah, it's worth getting involved and supporting, I think.
No, absolutely. And Martin, this is something I probably should have touched on, I suppose, when we were wrapping up the League One season. But geez, the amount of players that have won club awards. I mean, Jason Malumbi, John Egan won the Player of the Year award at Sheffield United. Sammy Smodix, the Fans Player of the Year award at Blackburn. And I suppose as well that we have Killian Phillips, go Kilbarrack man Killian Phillips. He won the Player of the Year award at Shrewsbury Town, having only joined in January. He's a phenomenal player. I remember watching him for Drogheda United last season, or no, 2 seasons ago would have been at this stage. And he's got that kind of Michael Carrick kind of vibe to him, but he's playing a little bit more advanced. It just shows what a good season a lot of Irish lads have had in the lower leagues.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, these awards just keep coming, don't they? And I think, to be fair, a lot of them have had very good seasons, and some of them have challenging times. Well, Bazzuni, for example, if it's going to be relegation, but some of the lads in the lower leagues are absolutely flying it. And we mentioned earlier, Dawson Devoy and Andy Lyons came into the leagues this year. The English League made moves and stuff, but would have missed the kind of pre-season in a sense, and it's always a big challenging time for them coming in from it. But both of them, especially Dawson Doyle, did very, very well when he first came in, because it was unexpected that he was going to have that impact. Done very, very well. Andy Lyons, especially, you're seeing him on the score sheet for Blackpool, and it's a shame they've gone down now. It really is, and I hope it won't be reflective of their kind of ability and stuff, and they have an opportunity. But it's not a bad thing, because it's going down a level. They're very young lads as well, and I could see both of them in time. Definitely getting in the kind of idea of getting into the Ireland squad some stage.
No, 100%. Sometimes it just takes a pre-season and another bit of experience. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that in there, Martin, because it is worth mentioning, and it is worth acknowledging how well the Irish lads have done. Right, so on to our favourite part of the show. Sadly, David isn't here, but we will be going through your comments. Social media watch or their comments. There's no music, but it doesn't matter because David isn't here. Right. So bear with me. Technical snafu. Oh my god, this is what happens when David isn't here. Right. John Griffin, a thumbs up.
Oh.
And Jordan McGrath, thumbs up. Daryl O'Connor, story lads. Well, Daryl, good to see you. And an even more important message here from Daryl. Hopefully Dave isn't waving the Union Jack, celebrating monarchism.
Well, Dave's boss, Andrew Lloyd Webber, has been very involved with this. We were saying too much there, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as I said, I believe that Dave is down under. Read into that what you want. Irish Football Blog. Hello, Bill. Special mention for Irish on Peterborough making the playoffs ahead of Derby. Yes, so Darragh McAntony does own Peterborough United, and I suppose Irish own, but unfortunately knocking out about half the Irish team along with it. Daryl O'Connor again. I think the whole debate around Whelan is that Trapp could or should have played Houlihan, whereas Whelan was the safer option. Still always gave 100% in the green jersey. Top servant. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think they actually partnered each other before, didn't they, against the Faroe Islands? I think they actually played in a flat too, and Houlihan was just streets ahead of the rest of them. Stephen Ring, I always thought Glenn Whelan's best games were when he was the sole CDM. Again, terminology I don't like, but absolutely agree, Stephen. 100%. Yeah, no, I think when he played as that anchor, that kind of quarterback. Again, I know that's another term that probably isn't very appropriate, but he was excellent. I think he demonstrated that at Stoke. He played a lot with Stephen Nzonzi, rather. He went on to play for Sevilla. Excellent player. And when he was able to play that bit deeper, he was, a very, very important player and did read the game so well, Martin, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, without doubt. A very good player for us. And, it's interesting, the CDM reference. And, he scored a couple of good goals, didn't he, for us as well, I think. Great goal.
Yeah. Scored a Mainz screamer of a goal. And then, of course, the goal against Italy.
Yeah.
In Croke Park, which I had the pleasure of seeing live.
Yeah, same as that.
Daryl again. So also, thoughts on Knight not going up with Derby? Reckon he'll move on? Is there much interest for him? So we kind of spoke about that, but I mean, there hasn't been anything concrete, has there? There's been speculation. There's been clubs kind of linked with him in the past. Crystal Palace is one of them. Newcastle at one stage. I don't think that's going to happen now, but it'll be the Championship if he does move, Martin, unless he goes to Germany. Wasn't he linked with Werder Bremen?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, look, there's going to be interest there as well, and again we've kind of forgotten as well. I know we mentioned it previously, but Ogbene is a free agent now. Ryan Manning's going to be a free agent, so they're both going to get moves, aren't they, to good high profile clubs, and he probably some of the promoted clubs as well, because when you're a free transfer, it's only a signing on fee and decent wages. And it's interesting. Well, we did speak off camera, I think, before as well about Michael Obafemi and how a lot of people are saying, oh, he's going to struggle now, and Burnley have gone up, but I think he was one that I think Vincent Kompany's been referenced as in the Swansea press, I think this week, of saying that, when he was purchased recently, that he was one for the future. So,
well, he said he wanted to ease him in, didn't he? But he also said that he's probably a little bit behind some of the other strikers at the club. But look, he's going up, and that's kind of the key thing. And you just hope he gets minutes here and there, and then maybe a bit of consistent game time. But look, they play with one striker, and they have about 5 of them.
Yeah.
Declan Finnegan, Tony Pulis molded Glenn into the type of player he became. Absolutely. No, 100%.
Yeah.
And again, that very functional Stoke team, I think he was a very, very key part of keeping it functional, wasn't he? And keeping them taking over as a holding player. Lansdowne Road, comment here. Where's the sexy one? I don't know what he's talking about. And he says here that Kieran Clark is a creep. So he must be talking about Kieran Clark if he's talking about the sexy one. Daryl O'Connor again. Wasn't Malumbi's biggest fan at the start of the Kenny era? I'm the opposite now. Great player, kicks the shit out of opposition, and a great attitude. Going to be huge for us going forward. Yeah, I'd echo that, Daryl. I mean, I loved Malumbi for the under-21s. I just thought he was a mini Roy Keane. I used to call him Diddy Roy Keane. But I think there is a sloppiness to his game, 100%. But I think the role he gives us, or I suppose the asset he is for us, is that he can break up the play. He can carry the ball forward. He can have those bursts. I do think he needs to play with a cooler head. A little bit like a younger James McLean. there has to be good decisions with the cool head made at international football. It is a slower tempo. It is smash bang, but also you do risk giving possession away when you play at that kind of tempo if you haven't got that technical ability. But I think he will develop nicely. And I think those kind of shades we would have seen with him at underage football, whether it be with Brighton or whether it be with Ireland, I think we are going to see that going forward. Martin Fitzpatrick, watch both Shamrock Rovers. Huge penalty shout not given, not good enough. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't plan on discussing the Dublin Derby from Friday. Look, Dan Cleary's challenge, I watch it back in slow motion. He does get the ball, but again, like tackle from behind in real time. Does the ref really, really see that, or is he just kind of second guessing? Look, as a Bulls fan, I actually think he's gotten it right. As much as it pains me to say it, but anyway, I'm still a bit raw from that, so we'll move on. Darrell O'Connor, delighted MK Dons went down. Fate Football Club and could have easily been the Dublin Dons. And hopefully Coleman will be back for Greece away. Any timeline on that, actually, Martin? Or it is looking okay for Greece. It looks like he will be back.
Yeah, I've not seen any timeline on it at all, but yeah, you'd hopefully we'll get a bit of recuperation now, and Everton have got 3 or 4 games left, so you'd hope that there's going to be a bit of a program in place for him. Yeah, I think he'll join up with the squad anyway, won't he? To be honest.
Oh, he will. I mean, he'll be there in the cheerleader role, if anything. Darrell again, realistically, can we get 6 points off the Greeks? Bookies favour Greece to finish higher in our group than us. There is a myth, Martin, about this Greek team that they're absolutely useless. I mean, Gus Poyet is the manager, but I don't think it's going to be an easy trip to Athens. I don't think it's going to be an easy game in Dublin. I see 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, look, we need to get a win. Basically, I think even at this early stage to kind of give us a hope of pitching the Dutch, because you would think that they will be a team in transition and will kind of come good towards the latter point of the qualification. But I think, look, it's going to be a tough one going there in June, and we've big applications for the FAI, not to digress, but like a lot of support.
One of the biggest ever, isn't it?
There. Yeah, I mean that's fantastic to see, and I think again that's supportive of what we're doing as a nation and Stephen Kenny's football, and even probably on the back of some of the younger lads' exploits recently. So yeah, I'd love to see us get the 3 points, obviously in June, but we do. My only concern is we do start these 2 games. We're normally quite slow in the first one, and in a way, if we control the match, that's what we're going to have to do in June, because the tempo of the game. It's going to be a massive challenge of that because of the heat and the conditions and stuff. So I don't know if we've got enough about us yet to be able to do that. You'd hope we would.
I think you'll see the progression under Stephen Kenny if we beat the Greeks, because they're not a bad side. Like, they've a lot of players playing European football. They aren't a bad side at all. There is a myth around them. Breen was on the show. If Breen's listening, I'm going to call you out, you bollocks. He said, the Greeks are shocking. No, we'll beat them home and away. And hopefully he's right. I really do hope he's right. But no, we have to look outside the box sometimes. I think that's key to keep in mind. Another Darrell O'Connor comment. Jesus, Darrell, you might as well be on the show. Up the Kilbarrack. Great to have some representation from this part of the world. Phillips is a legend. Again, in reference to Killian Phillips, who was named the Shrewsbury Town Player of the Season. And the snapper as well. The snapper was Kilbarrack. Declan Finnegan, views on Ogbene moving. Thoughts on that, Martin?
Well, we know he's moving, but it's just where he's going to go. And as I said recently, don't go to Italy was the advice for any young player from Keith Andrews.
Yeah.
I think I hope he stays in England, and I could see him going to a good level, championship club. Even like Sheffield United wouldn't be a bad shout for him. Some of the promoted teams,
maybe. Yeah,
he is a good player, but. And I don't want him to go somewhere where he's just going to be perhaps the impact player, because I think when he gets into a run of it for Rotherham, he's played very, very well. But yeah, he is a really one to watch, I think.
Yeah, as you said, somewhere where he doesn't end up as the impact player, or somewhere where he doesn't end up just kind of rotting in the Championship. Somewhere like Preston, I wouldn't like that. Swansea, I know there's been talk about that. Fenerbahce will be an interesting one. Might be a different way of experiencing his football. Club Bruges as well, we're looking at him too. So I think a European move will be interesting. Look at Josh Cullen, worked out for him. I can see him going to a Watford or something. I don't really know, but yeah, realistically, Swansea. I know that there was a bit of concrete interest there, so it's just an interesting one there. Stephen Ring, if Coleman isn't fit for Greece, we are really light at right back. Do we play Doherty or Doherty, Martin, in case you weren't sure who it was, who's barely played a minute, or play Ogbene at right wing back? That's a difficult one. I think Stephen Kenny fancied Doherty as a left wing back with Coleman as a right wing back. I don't think the right centre half thing really worked. I don't think it was really giving the club good balance. Giving the team good balance. The club good balance. Danny McNamara is an excellent player as well, Martin. I think he possibly has to come into the mix again. It's not ideal that he's going to be involved in the playoffs from a selfish perspective, but apart from that, I don't really know who comes in. I mean, Alan Brown is fancied there, isn't he? Unfortunately.
You have to get your dig in there about him.
Yeah.
Look, I think Doherty will play there because if Seamus isn't fit, I think that's the way he will go with it, and then worry about the left side. But yeah, I can't see. I think they like Ogbene further up the pitch, and again, I know I'm name dropping in the Keith Andrews kind of chat we had with him recently, but they were quite. Even though Ogbene got man of the match against the French, he wasn't actually doing a lot of what they had asked him to do in the first half, and then he got into the game and stretched them. So that shows you, though, the kind of profile he has now within the Irish team, that he was so important to our plan against the French. And, I think if we go back to that game, how important Coleman was and how well he played against Mbappe. I think, was it the second time Mbappe's been stopped from having a shot on target or something?
Yeah. I think with Coleman, I mean, he has to play wing back for us if he continues on playing. I know a lot of people say, oh, look, he's 34, 35, whatever he is now. They're like, he can't play wing back. He hasn't got the pace for it. Not necessarily always the case, is it? I mean, he's still got that explosiveness somehow. He's lost that couple of yards of pace, but he does have that explosiveness. He does have that ability. If you're playing right wing back in the Premier League, you can play right wing back for Ireland. And I think even if Doherty isn't playing for Atletico, he's probably still going to get minutes. I mean, Betsy Obazele, not playing enough at all. Not playing enough at all. Still very, very raw. He's part of the under-21 squad. That's not going to be an option. Danny McNamara, as I said already, hasn't really been blooded in. I think if he came in maybe November time, maybe for the friendlies in March, he might have been an option. Or the Latvia friendly rather in March, he might have been an option. But at the moment, I think it's really Doherty, really, and then possibly Alan Brown.
I think on the back of that, though, like, people just seem to rule Coleman out because of his age and things like that. Like, he's a professional footballer now. He looks after himself. Their strength and conditioning coaching is amazing. Like, they're professional athletes. It's not a case of, oh, he's crocked all the time and then, he's 34, he's finished now. They go on a lot longer now. They look after themselves and,
sports science has progressed so much. And on the show already, we've spoken about James McLean. I mean, yes, he's been relegated with Wigan, but it's been one of his finest seasons ever. And he's 34. And Glenn Whelan, we've just spoken about, who's retiring at 39. So they do go a lot longer. Are they at their peak going a lot longer? Maybe not, but they're still serving a purpose. They're still doing a job. We haven't got a massive player pool. We don't have that novelty where we can stop calling up the older lads. If they're playing in the top flight, which Coleman mightn't be realistically next season, who knows? But if they're playing at a decent level, if they're performing, if they're starting, then we can't really rule them out. Sean McDonald, Ryan Manning, definitely underrated. Always like going to see him at QPR. Sean Dubb, living in Feltham. Or Feltham. Yeah. So, look, Manning, free agent in the summer. I've kind of mentioned Sheffield United because I don't think Enda Stephen is unfortunately quite at it anymore. But excellent player. One of the top fullbacks in the championship this season. So looking forward to seeing him and where he goes. Stephen Ring, also big shout out to you for this week back in the day. They've been top class and look forward to them every week. Well done, Martin.
And now you've been on them as well. Now, they've been great fun to do. The lads put a great bit of research into that. And we do find these obscure facts. And it does take time to put together, but we're glad people enjoy them. So we've got some great stuff lined up as well. So keep listening. Yeah,
absolutely. And we are going to be previewing this week's in a couple of minutes. Stephen Ring again. If Everton stay up, could see Ogbene fitting in well. Interesting shout. They have a lot of wingers, don't they? They have a huge amount of wingers, Everton. But I think if they get relegated, he could fit in there well. It's an interesting one, and it'll be interesting to see where Everton end up next season.
Premier League team to take a gamble on him would be worthwhile, wouldn't it? One of the teams going up as well because he's a free transfer. That's a massive thing now.
I think his attitude is another
Yeah.
huge thing as well. Like, he seems to be a bit of one of those robot players. You know, he just takes instruction really, really well. Just a very good functional player. You know, I think wherever he goes, he'll do absolutely excellently. Stephen O'Rourke, no Irish player should be sitting on the bench, and if I think that means if needs to drop to start, possibly. I mean, that has happened. Look at Conor Harran. Darrell O'Connor, again, we should just rename this Darrell O'Connor show. They'll be our toughest test yet, the Greeks. Feckin' Greeks. Well, there'll be no pushover realistically. You think 6 points off them minimum to try and rob second place. Whether that happens is another story. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think we need at least one victory against the Greeks. And Darrell, again, small bone made Doherty look good versus Latvia. I thought he was awful against Latvia. Not cousin Will. But Matt, he gets lost at right wing back in a green jersey. But would love to see Smallbone play in Athens, as I'm sure Martin will as well. And the last comment for today, again from Daryl. Watch Sheffield United last week. Enda came on, then came off again. Not sure if he picked up another knock or not. He did pick up an injury in that game. He was only on for a couple of minutes. And the last word here from Daryl. Haha, I love an L comment. Good man, Daryl. The show would literally be nothing without you tonight. Good man, Daryl. Great sport as always. Great. So we have gotten a bit of praise. We love self-praise, Martin, don't we? We absolutely love self-praise, and that's why we need to plug this week's episode of This Week Back in the Day. And I need to get rid of that comment from Daryl. See what happens when Dave leaves. Everything's everything's classier, but it just goes to absolute shit. So do check out last week's This Week Back in the Day. We did speak about when Mick McCarthy named his 2002 World Cup squad. A couple of surprises in it, Martin, wasn't there? A couple of little known facts. We looked at the media reaction and we looked at the players that missed out. I made the call of John O'Shea. Well, another one that I didn't mention, Martin, was Dennis Irwin.
Yeah.
I mean, he was 57 at the time, but he was still playing for Wolves. He got promoted with them the following season, played a season in the Premier League. Terry Phelan, we spoke to Terry last summer, and Terry reckoned he could have been in that squad as well. I think he was around the similar age, around 35 mark. But this week, still in 2002, and do check out our 2002 World Cup series. But what we will be looking at, or at least what Martin and Dave will be looking at, is Niall Quinn's testimonial. Do you want to give us a little preview on that, Martin?
Yeah, this was a fantastic episode to do. A lot of research from Dave and stuff, but yeah, a lot of kind of review of the match program in a sense that's relevant to this one. And yeah, some stuff that you probably wouldn't know as well, and a lot of the Irish football politics coming out and relationships of who's pro Roy and who's pro Mick. Lots of stuff going on there. Really good fun and good crack to record it. So yeah, we hope everybody will enjoy it. So give us your feedback.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to note as well, and this is something Dave told me, is that it was mentioned in Parliament, wasn't it? About the money he given to charity. So do check that out. We did cover it briefly in our 2002 series last year, the 20-year anniversary show. But do check it out with David and Martin on Wednesday morning. That will drop at 8 a.m. So that's all we have time for. I think we've one more comment. Tom Webb, Tom Cannon for the next squad. Yes or no, Martin? It's a certain yes from me.
Yeah, certain yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
Certain yes from me. He will be playing in the Championship next season for Everton, I would say. So, it's all we have time for tonight. So do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast back on Spotify, Apple, wherever it is, just hit the subscribe button. It only takes a second. And we would really, really appreciate it. And be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which is all in our bio. We're great to have you on, Martin. It was great to host today. It all gets a lot less classy from here. We wish David the very best of luck with his date tonight. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. So until then, all the best and take care.